It was a chilly morning when the sound of a luxury car echoed through the quiet streets near St. Mary's Orphanage. The staff peeked through the windows in surprise. It wasn't every day that a billionaire arrived at their doorstep. Mr. Alexander Reed, a well-known entrepreneur, stepped out of his sleek black car, his face calm yet weary. He was a man who had everything: wealth, power, fame. But there was still an emptiness in his eyes, the kind that no amount of money could fill. 8 years ago, he had lost his only son, Ethan, during a tragic family trip to the countryside. Despite endless searches, private investigators, and media coverage, the boy had vanished without a trace. The loss had shattered Alexander's world and turned his heart cold. Today, he wasn't visiting the orphanage for personal reasons, or so he thought. He had come to make a generous donation in honor of his late wife, who had devoted her life to helping children in need before she passed away from illness 2 years earlier. The headmistress, Sister Margaret, greeted him warmly, her hands trembling slightly as she led him through the orphanage halls. Children's laughter echoed around them, bouncing off faded walls covered in colorful drawings. Some of the kids peeked curiously at the tall man in the expensive suit, whispering among themselves. Alexander tried to smile, but his heart felt heavy. Each child's face reminded him of Ethan, the way he used to run around, his laughter lighting up their home. As they walked toward the recreation room, a small voice caught his attention. "Good morning, sir," the boy said softly, clutching a worn-out book in his hands. He had bright eyes, though slightly shy, and his hair was a familiar shade of chestnut brown. Alexander smiled politely and nodded, not realizing that this moment would soon change his life forever. During the donation ceremony, reporters gathered, snapping photos as Alexander handed over a large check to the orphanage. "This is to support education, food, and better living conditions for these children," he said into the microphone, his tone steady but distant. Yet as he spoke, his eyes wandered back to the boy sitting quietly in the corner, reading the same old book. Something about the child's posture, the tilt of his head, stirred a long-buried memory. When the event ended, Alexander asked Sister Margaret about the boy. "That's Liam," she replied kindly. "He's been with us for about 7 years. A kind soul, but we don't know much about his past. He was found wandering near a riverbank when he was around 4 or 5. No one ever came to claim him." Alexander froze. 7 years? Riverbank? His heartbeat quickened. He approached the boy, who looked up nervously, sensing the man's intense gaze. "Hey, Liam," Alexander said gently. "What are you reading?" The boy smiled faintly. "It's a storybook about heroes. I like stories where lost people find their families again." The words pierced Alexander's heart like a knife. His hands trembled as he knelt down. "Liam, do you remember anything from before you came here?" The boy frowned, struggling to recall. "Sometimes I dream about a big house, a woman singing me to sleep, and a man who called me champ." Alexander's eyes filled with tears. That was his wife's lullaby. That was his nickname for Ethan. Desperation and hope collided within him. He asked Sister Margaret if he could arrange a DNA test. The headmistress hesitated at first, but agreed, seeing the man's genuine emotion. The test was done quickly, and Alexander waited restlessly in his car outside the orphanage, unable to think of anything else. Hours felt like days. Finally, his phone rang. The voice on the other end trembled. "Mr. Reed, the results are positive. Liam is your biological son." For a moment, Alexander couldn't breathe. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "My boy, my Ethan." He rushed back inside, his heart pounding. When he entered the orphanage, Ethan, still unaware of the truth, looked up from his book. Alexander knelt before him, tears flooding his eyes. "Ethan, it's me, Dad," he said softly. The boy froze. "My dad?" he repeated, confusion clouding his expression. Sister Margaret nodded gently, smiling through her tears. Slowly, Ethan reached out his small hand and touched Alexander's face as if making sure this wasn't a dream. Then he broke into tears, throwing his arms around his father's neck. "I missed you so much, Daddy." The sound of those words shattered the years of silence in Alexander's heart. He held his son tightly, crying openly for the first time in years. The staff and children watched the reunion with tears in their eyes. Alexander thanked Sister Margaret over and over, promising to support the orphanage for the rest of his life. That day, he didn't just make a donation. He found the part of his soul he thought was lost forever. As they left the orphanage, Ethan held his father's hand tightly, his eyes shining with hope. "Can I call you Dad again?" he asked. Alexander smiled. "You never stopped being my son." Together they drove away, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of gold, symbolizing a new beginning for both. And as this emotional story closes, remember, miracles do happen even when hope seems gone. Never stop believing in the power of love, destiny, and faith. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us what truly matters in life: family, compassion, and the courage to keep believing. Because sometimes life's most beautiful moments are born out of the deepest pain.